a timeless tale of a mortal girl and a celestial soul bound by one night each year. Through frost, memory, and magic, they find eternity in fleeting hours. A story of love beyond time, where even in goodbye, their hearts remain woven beneath falling snow and fading starlight. There is a moment when the world hushes itself, a heartbeat of stillness on Christmas Eve, as though time itself pauses to listen. I've learned that magic rarely announces itself. It slipped into my life unbidden when I was 16, on a night both fragile and unforgettable. The air was crisp, though the wind carried no announcement. Only the weight of snow, soft and expectant, blanketed our small town under a pall of anticipation. I was drawn by something I didn't yet understand, a lure that led me deep into Waverly Forest, to an old glass conservatory left to decay amid thorn and frost. The conservatory had been derelict for years, its ornate ironwork rusted and collapsed. Stained glass lay shattered on the floor like falling constellations, catching the last rays of golden sun that filtered through skeletal branches. The scene was an achingly beautiful, elegant ruin where color and cold intertwined. Snow drifted inside, settling on broken benches and glass roses frozen mid-bloom. I felt at home in that silence, home in that quiet grief. And then he appeared. He was standing in the center, framed by shattered blue and amber glass. The frost retreated from his boots, as though afraid to touch him. He looked no older than 20, with dark hair that fell carelessly around his face and eyes that sparkled with something deeper than youth. The moment I saw him, my heart jolted not with fear, but with recognition. But recognition of what? I didn't know. I only knew this man. This presence did not belong. It felt impossible, and yet the world around us accepted him fully. I froze. He did not move, only observed me. The briefest motion of his head felt like a greeting carried on gentle wind. My sensation wasn't fear, but an unspoken invitation. Be here now. Be present. I stepped forward and he watched. That was enough for me to stay. The snow outside continued to fall, but inside that place I felt held, seen, like a story waiting for a teller. I returned each Christmas Eve after that. No words passed between us. None were needed. I would slip away from home when it grew dark, the same way every year, guided toward that hidden clearing and the glimmer of broken glass. He would be there, always waiting. Over time, I realized he didn't age. His hair never silvered. His face never changed. While I grew older, growing taller, sharper, and more aware, he remained untouched by any mark of time. In those years, the world around me changed. I graduated from school and left for the city to study literature. I learned about heartbreak, ambition, and distance. I tasted the bitterness of betrayal from friends and the hollow ache of unfulfilled dreams. On my 23rd Christmas Eve, after failing a love I thought would last forever, I trudged through the snow to that abandoned sanctuary. My heart felt like ice, and I expected him to be gone. But he was there. The frost still fled from his boots, his figure unmoved by the world's seasons. I sat across from him on a stone bench, the shards of colorful glass shimmering like shattered dreams. In that silent company, I found comfort, and I realized that I had fallen in love with him, not with a human, not with a memory ghost, but with something in between, a presence that transcended logic, that insisted on being real. I felt it pull me in, a magnetic longing for warmth he could never fully give. Years passed. By 26, I had earned my degree and returned home. My parents had grown quietly worried, but accepted my solitary habits. I said little when they asked if I was lonely. My own yearning was something they couldn't grasp. That Christmas Eve, I carried a scarf I'd knitted with trembling fingers, its wool soft and imperfect. When I reached the conservatory, I draped it over a fractured stone bench, and just like that, he wore it. He didn't smile, but I saw gratitude in the slight tilt of his head. I felt it in how the air around him shimmered. In that same year, I discovered why he came. I realized it wasn't the place itself that bound him, but me. Or perhaps more precisely, it was the memory of someone who once wore that broken glass house like a cradle. He brought me here, year after year, because I mirrored someone he had once loved, someone long gone, someone mortal. I sensed light sorrow behind his presence now, a burden of guilt and longing. He visited the same place out of devotion to a memory that had finally taken root in me. By the time I was 28, I understood the truth. He was bound by a curse, gifted and doomed by a choice he had made long ago. Once, he had loved a mortal woman who died. Under the velvet night sky, he begged the universe to let him see her again, just once. They answered, but with a dreadful caveat. He would return not to her body, but to the last place they had been together, once each year on Christmas Eve. No words, no escape, just a looped fragment of time. Each year I arrived, and we shared silence, sadness, and something so profound I could hardly name it. I carried grief from my own losses, and that grief intertwined with his, forging a tether stronger than any spoken vow. We walked among broken glass and shattered petals, my footsteps echoing the rhythm of his unmoving heart. At 29, I stopped studying and settled near the forest in a humble cottage with frost-frosted windows, just a stone's throw from that old conservatory. I couldn't explain why. Maybe it was the hope that more closeness would change things. I spent most of my time tending a small garden, though no flowers bloomed in snow-blackened soil. My days were quiet and frugal, broken only by the memory of his presence on the eve of December's peak. I came to think that the charm holding him here was fraying. Each Christmas Eve, I felt him come later. The first year, he barely appeared before midnight. Then a few minutes pass. Last year, I waited until dawn and nearly wept when he didn't arrive at all. I believed I had lost him, and that the stars had finally given his tether the freedom we both dreaded. Grief welled in me anew, sharper than any previous sorrow. But then that dawn, like always the snow deepening, there he was, dim as the retreating moon. He stood at the threshold and looked at me with eyes older than time, flooded with apology. I understood without a word. The loop was unraveling. The curse is ending. But there was a final choice in that unraveling. He could break free, end his pain, and rest. Or choose to stay one last night with me, fully, though it would cost him his place on the mortal plane forever. He stayed. The moment he stepped forward, the world shifted. The frost melted underfoot, light unspooled from him, warm and slow, like dawn after a deep winter. It felt like sunrise had been waiting within him all this time, yearning to break free. At midnight, we shared something eternal, more than touch, more than closeness. We became a single heartbeat of winter and flame. I felt hope in his warmth and sorrow at its inevitability. He held me through the night until dawn finally came over the horizon. By then, the night's magic had peaked. Daylight broke through shattered glass, dancing on cold stone. He became light, glowing, silent, and infinite. My heart broke and mended all at once. I understood. Love doesn't always hold on. Sometimes love must let go in order to become something greater than memory. When dawn fully erased the blue of night, I stood amidst shards and frost. The sunlight dazzled. And where he had been, there remained only absence and perfect presence woven into my bones. I closed my eyes and felt his warmth evaporate, but in its place, a spark that would live within me forever. The morning after he vanished, the forest seemed quieter than I had ever known it. Even the birds withheld their songs, as if mourning what the world had just lost. I stood in the conservatory until the last threads of light faded from the rose-hued glass. The wind pressed gently against the fractured panes, whispering in a language only grief understood. My body ached with the weight of silence, but my soul felt strangely full, like it had been touched by something ancient and sacred. I did not return to the city. The world beyond the forest felt irrelevant now, as though I had outlived its rhythm. Instead, I remained in the small cottage I had built near the conservatory, spending my days in soft solitude, painting fragments of our time together on canvas and parchment. I recreated the colors of his eyes, the shimmer of frost beneath his boots, and the feel of moonlight brushing against our skin. I became a curator of memory, a quiet archivist of a love story few would believe. The town whispered about the woman in the woods, the strange girl who left the city to live in seclusion. Some said I had lost someone in the war. Others guessed heartbreak or madness. I let them speculate. They could never understand the truth, that I had loved someone not bound by time, and that our love had been measured in enchanted nights rather than mortal years. Each Christmas Eve, I returned to the conservatory. I swept the floor, cleared the snow from the stones, and lit the candles I had placed in the nooks of the crumbling walls. The light flickered against frost and broken glass, casting shadows that almost resembled his figure. I brought a chair some years, a blanket other times, and once, a music box that played a melody he had once hummed, a tune that felt written for stardust and snow. Sometimes I felt him, not as a presence that could be seen or touched, but as a warmth that crept into the marrow of my bones, a flicker of wind that smelled of pine and midnight, a rhythm in the earth that matched my heartbeat. Once, I swore I saw a footprint in the snow beside mine. Not deep, not lasting, just enough. The world moved on around me. People aged, had children, and passed away. My parents died quietly within a year of each other. I buried them beneath a weeping willow and placed violets on their graves. They had never truly understood my bond with the forest, but I believe they sensed something sacred in my solitude. They left me the house in town, which I gave away. I wrote once, a story unnamed, unpublished, tucked away in a drawer. It told of two souls meeting between time, bound not by fate but by the ache of unfinished love. I never showed it to anyone. It felt too sacred, too raw, like painting over a ghost with living color. By my 40th Christmas Eve, the conservatory had begun to collapse. The glass was nearly gone, reduced to splinters embedded in moss and dirt. Vines wrapped around the iron skeleton, claiming the space with quiet dominance. But I still went. I lit my candles. I hummed the melody. I remembered. It was around that time the dreams began. Not nightmares, never that. They were soft, shimmering illusions. In them, I was walking through snow, only to find a version of him not bound by frost or starlight. Sometimes he would walk beside me, his hand brushing mine. Other times, we sat in a sunlit meadow far removed from winter, where flowers bloomed impossibly in the snow. Each dream ended the same, with the sensation of something slipping away, a thread pulling from the hem of a garment too precious to mend. As I grew older, my body changed. My hair thinned and silvered, my hands curled inward with arthritis. The stairs to the conservatory became more difficult to climb. Yet my heart remained tethered to that place as fiercely as ever. I kept waiting not because I expected his return, but because love had changed me. What we shared had expanded the dimensions of my soul. By my 60th year, I no longer left the cottage. The forest came to me now. Deer walked through the snow with solemn grace, birds nested on my windowsill, the wind sang through the branches with the gentle cadence of a lullaby. I no longer feared death. I had already met eternity once, and it had not frightened me. If anything, I longed to be folded into that quiet magic again, where time held no dominion. One snowy morning, close to another Christmas Eve, I woke with a sharp pain in my chest and a slowness in my limbs that felt like stone. I knew then that I was nearing the end. My body was whispering the truth I had long known. My thread was unraveling. But I felt no fear, only peace. That evening, I dressed slowly in my thick wool coat, the red one I had worn when I was 23, now faded and patched with care. I wrapped the same scarf I had once given him around my neck and stepped outside for what I believed would be the final time. The walk to the conservatory was longer than ever. I moved slowly, like a pilgrim returning to sacred ground. The forest opened for me, snow parting gently as if recognizing its keeper. When I reached the structure, I found it half swallowed by time. Only a few arches remained. The floor was a carpet of moss and snow, but the feeling of presence was still there. I lit one candle, then another. My hands shook, but the flames did not flicker. I sat on the cold stone bench where we had once shared years in silence. I closed my eyes, and then I felt it. Not warmth, not sound, something else. Light, golden, full, pulsing through my skin as though I were being unstitched from the fabric of this world and rewoven into another. I opened my eyes, and for the first time in decades, he stood before me. But he changed. He no longer shimmered like starlight, no longer flickered like a spirit caught between veils. He was whole, humans, radiant. His eyes were the same deep, sorrowful, and kind, but his form no longer defied time. He extended a hand. And I took it. Not as a girl aching for magic, but as a woman ready for peace. The forest blurred around us. The snow fell upward. The light from the candles rose into the sky, joining stars that pulsed like heartbeats. The conservatory disappeared behind us, fading into memory. And we walked into the trees, into the light, into forever. I do not know what remains of me now. Maybe a whisper in the wind, a shimmer in falling snow. Perhaps in the ruin of the conservatory, 2 sets of footprints appear each Christmas Eve before vanishing at dawn. Some say the woman in the forest still walks there, her red coat trailing behind her like a comet of love lost and found. Others swear they've seen a man standing beside her, eyes full of stories the world has forgotten. All I know is this: love, when true, does not vanish, it transforms. And on each enchanted Christmas Eve, the veil between now and always thinks just enough for those willing to believe.